over the summer, the information had this story that was headlined, Apple moves forward with foldable iPhone. Apple, they write, is working on a foldable iPhone that could be released as early as 2026, and in recent months reached out to suppliers in Asia to make components for the device, according to two people with direct knowledge of the matter. The phone would fold widthwise like a clamshell, similar to the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip. Apple is known to cancel products late in their development, and there is no guarantee that it would release the foldable iPhone. However, if Apple ends up launching the product, it would be one of the biggest hardware design changes in the iPhone's history. So, Ben, we got a few different questions about this report when it surfaced this summer, but frankly, the search function on Microsoft Outlook is horrible, so I couldn't get all the way back to July. Apologies to the people who wrote in. But do you have any particular context for this project at Apple? Like, it strikes me as something that people have been speculating about for like 10 years, but that's just a guess. Do you think Apple is ever going to seriously release a foldable iPhone?
I mean, I think there's a good chance, and it's going to be very funny when they do, because Apple's going to introduce it as the most incredible sort of new thing in the world, and all the Android fans are going to lose their minds because they've been, there's been foldable phones in the Android ecosystem for a few years. That's right. It just drives them bonkers, and it's funny every time that it happens. But that is, on one hand, you could say that's a negative. One of the challenges Apple has is they sell at such volume that it's not viable for them to introduce a product like this to be the first to market. Like, because, but on the flip side, they get a benefit from the ecosystem has been figuring out how to make foldable phones for several years now. And like the first couple of years were pretty rough. Like they have, creasing issues and failure issues and all those sorts of things. And Apple's fine. Samsung, go ahead, figure it out. Huawei, go and figure it out. Now Google sort of doing it, sort of figure it out. And by the time they bring it to market, it's going to be a more sort of mature technology, and they'll be able to do it sort of at scale and with sort of the quality expectations that they want. The foldable market's interesting. I think because there's two types of foldables. Number one is like the Google Fold, and Samsung has a version of this too, where it opens like a book. And I think this is pretty interesting. I have a hard time seeing the use for me personally, just because we for the iPad discussion, I don't use my iPad I use it to watch TV and use it on the treadmill to play Sudoku, like I said. So the having the big screen, one-handed use just feels more compelling to me, like, than having that sort of experience. But I could see that being attractive to basically have a large screen with you sort of whenever you go. This, though, the talk here is about the clamshell idea. And I think that's pretty interesting, where it still is nice to have a bigger screen, even if it is in sort of your traditional candy bar form factor. This just makes it, I think, more pocketable, easy to sort of carry. I do think that I wish Apple, one thing I hope comes that Android does have is sort of a stronger sense of multitasking, where with Apple, I'll be watching a game on my phone. I do this a lot. And then the notification comes in on top of the game, and it's really annoying. And I would have a greater sort of bifurcation between an app on top and one on bottom and things along those lines. And could a foldable sort of force that in? Would be interesting. Maybe not. Maybe it's just the same interface, but just, you get a bigger screen that shrinks down. I don't know. I do think it probably, it's an interesting technology that I think gives you more possibilities. So I wouldn't be surprised to see this happen. What I do have is sort of a tangential point that I've been thinking more about in the context of Google. So I was interested in this Google Fold just to see, what would it be like? Also, I haven't gotten a new Android phone in a while. I figured I should, dip my toes back in, as I, used to do almost every year. And it's one thing that occurs to me is it's actually gotten much more difficult to change phones sort of in general. And I noticed this sort of with myself, where my phone actually broke over the summer. One of the things that I've learned over time, we talked about this, is always carry a spare phone.
Jason Bourne on the other line, of course.
I'm still using my spare phone, even though Apple repaired my phone, just because it's such a pain to switch over. I'm like, well, new phones are coming anyway, so I might as well just sort of wait. And it's interesting because the real lock-in is not iMessage, which is pretty seamless. And if you do Android, there's there's applications you can use to basically run on a Mac that will serve up messages. You can get around the iMessage thing if you maintain a Mac server, which I do.
Yeah.
And so that's actually not the challenge. Things like WhatsApp and Line and all this sort of thing, because they're often for security reasons or identity reasons or whatever, they're sort of tied to one device. You can have WhatsApp applications on your computer or Line applications on your computer or the devices, but it's only on one phone sort of ever. And that specifically, there's also just the transferring apps and does the phone to phone work?
QR
Technically, that should be the
codes,
right idea, and like things along those lines. And it's just, but the messaging one in particular, I find to be the biggest obstacle to changing phones. And it's interesting that it's in some respects like Meta and for me Line to a certain extent are providing more lock-in for a phone than like Apple's own stuff to a certain extent. So when I thought about getting this Fold, I'm like, well, I don't really see how I'm going to use it. Just I use a phone a lot, but in almost no circumstance do I want a big device that I have to like have two hands that I'm using or I'm setting on a table. It's always sort of in my hand, which my physical therapist gets mad about because they get like my forearm muscles get worn down. But yeah, so I haven't gotten one. I did put an order. I canceled it. So I would like to try it and figure it out. Maybe I'll get one in the end. But I don't know. That's just a tangent. I've been self-examining my hesitation to even get a new phone. It feels really hard. It feels increasingly hard to sort of switch.